The stars had never looked so cold. Commander Jack stood at the bridge of the crippled transport vessel Relentless Dawn, his hands gripping the rail until his knuckles turned white. Through the viewport, he watched the debris field spread across thousands of kilometers of empty space. Twisted metal, frozen bodies, and the broken hulls of humanity's greatest warships drifted in silence. The battle had ended 3 hours ago, but the dying had taken much longer. Earth's fleet was gone. 47 warships, carrying the hopes of 8 billion people, had been torn apart in less than 6 hours. The Dominion had not come to negotiate. They had not come to conquer. They had come to teach humanity a lesson about its place in the galaxy, and that lesson was written in blood and fire. Was 43 years old. He had served in the United Earth Navy for 20 years, rising through the ranks with patience and skill. He had survived 3 colonial uprisings, 2 pirate campaigns, and the chaos of first contact with alien life. Nothing had prepared him for this. Nothing could have prepared anyone for watching their entire civilization brought to its knees in a single afternoon. "Commander," a voice said behind him. It was Lieutenant Maya Santos, his second in command. Her face was pale, and there was a cut above her eye that she had not bothered to clean. "We have picked up a signal. Something is drifting about 200 kilometers off our port side." "Did not turn around." "No, sir. The signature does not match anything in our database. It does not match anything either." That caught his attention. He turned slowly, looking at the young officer. Santos had been with him for 5 years. He had never seen her look uncertain before. "Show me," he said. The main flickered to life, displaying an image of something floating among the wreckage. Felt his breath catch in his throat. It was a ship, but unlike any ship he had ever seen. The hull was dark, almost black, covered in patterns that seemed to shift and move when he looked at them directly. It was larger than the Relentless Dawn, perhaps 3 times the size, but it had no visible engines, no weapon ports, no windows. It looked ancient, impossibly ancient, like something that had been drifting through the void since before humans had learned to walk upright. "What is that?" whispered. Dr. Kate pushed her way onto the bridge. She was the ship's chief, a brilliant woman with gray hair and sharp eyes. She had spent her entire career studying alien artifacts, but the expression on her face told that she had never seen anything like this. "I have been scanning it for the last 10 minutes, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "The materials in that hull do not exist in our periodic table. The energy readings are off the scale but contained, like a star trapped in a bottle. And those symbols on the surface, Commander, I have seen fragments of similar writing on ruins that are over 2 million years old." Stared at the screen. The fleet was gone, having jumped away after their victory. They had not even bothered to finish off the few surviving human vessels. Why would they? Humanity was broken. They were no longer a threat. They were barely even worth noticing. But they had not noticed this ship either. They had been so focused on their slaughter that they had ignored the most remarkable object in the entire system. "Can we bring it aboard?" asked. Hesitated. "We should not. We have no idea what it is, what it does, or why it is here. For all we know, it could be a trap, a weapon, or something far worse." "They killed 30,000 people today," said quietly. "They destroyed our fleet, and in 3 days they will reach Earth. We have nothing left. No weapons, no ships, no hope. If there is even a small chance that this thing can help us, we have to take it." Looked at him for a long moment, then she nodded slowly. The docking procedure took 4 hours. The Relentless Dawn was a transport vessel, not designed for salvage operations, but the crew worked with desperate efficiency. They extended magnetic clamps, adjusted their position, and slowly pulled the alien vessel into the main cargo bay. When the bay doors finally closed and the atmosphere was restored, led a team of 12 people to examine their prize. The cargo bay was cold. The lights flickered as they approached the dark hull of the alien ship. Up close, the symbols were even more disturbing. They seemed to glow faintly, pulsing with a rhythm that reminded of a heartbeat. Doctor ran her scanner over the surface, her brow furrowed. "There is a seam here," she said, pointing to a section of the hull. "It might be a door." Reached out and touched the surface. The metal was warm, almost hot, despite the cold of space. The moment his fingers made contact, the seam had identified began to split open, revealing a dark corridor beyond. "It knows we are here," said softly. Unholstered his sidearm. "Stay behind me." They entered the ship one by one, their flashlights cutting through the darkness. The interior was vast and empty, the walls covered in the same shifting symbols. The air smelled strange, like ozone and something older, something that had no name. They found the core chamber at the center of the vessel. It was a massive spherical room, dominated by a pillar of light that pulsed with colors had never seen before. The light was beautiful and terrible at the same time, and looking at it made his eyes water. "What is this?" Lieutenant Santos asked, her voice trembling. Approached the pillar slowly, her scanner forgotten in her hand. "This is not just a ship," she said. "This is a weapon. Whatever species built this, they designed it for one purpose only: destruction on a scale we cannot even imagine." Stared at the pulsing light. Somewhere out there, the fleet was on its way to Earth. His family was on Earth. His children were on Earth. 8 billion people were waiting to die because humanity had dared to reach for the stars. "Then we learn how to use it," he said. "Whatever it takes, however long it takes. We learn, and then we show them that humanity does not die quietly." The light pulsed faster, as if in response to his words. And deep within the ancient ship, something that had slept for millions of years began to wake up. 3 years had passed since the fall of Earth. The Dominion had established their occupation without mercy, herding humans into labor camps and stripping the planet of its resources. Resistance movements rose and fell like waves against a cliff. Millions died. Millions more wished they had. But not all of humanity had surrendered. On Europa, the frozen moon of Jupiter, buried beneath 3 kilometers of ice, a secret facility hummed with activity. Commander had become admiral now, the highest-ranking officer of what remained of free humanity. He had gathered survivors, scientists, soldiers, and dreamers in this hidden place. They called themselves the Remnant, and they had one purpose: to unlock the secrets of the alien vessel they had named the Harbinger. Dr. Kate had aged 10 years in those 3 years. Her hair had gone completely white, and deep lines had formed around her eyes, but her mind was sharper than ever. She stood in the primary research chamber, surrounded by holographic displays showing data that would have seemed like magic to scientists just a decade ago. "We have made progress," she said to the assembled officers, "but not enough. The Harbinger operates on principles we barely understand. Its power source alone breaks every law of physics we know. We can study it, we can measure it, but we cannot replicate it." Admiral leaned forward. "Then we need to find another way. There must be some method of interfacing with the ship directly." "There is," said, and her voice was heavy with worry. "The Harbinger has a neural command system. It was designed to bond with a living pilot, to become an extension of their consciousness. But the process is dangerous. We have run simulations. A human brain was not built for this kind of connection. The information transfer alone could cause permanent damage or death." Silence fell over the room. Everyone understood what was saying. Someone would have to risk their life, their sanity, and possibly their soul to unlock the weapon that could save them all. "I will do it," a voice said from the back of the room. Lieutenant Commander Sam Griffin stepped forward. He was a tactical systems officer, 35 years old, with a reputation for remaining calm under impossible pressure. He had lost his wife and daughter in the initial invasion. He had nothing left to lose except his own life, and that had stopped mattering to him a long time ago. Shook her head. "Commander Griffin, you do not understand the risks. The simulations show a 90% chance of catastrophic neural failure. You could die. You could end up in a permanent coma. You could lose your mind entirely." Griffin smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "I lost my mind the day they killed my family. Whatever is left, I give to this cause freely. If there is even a 10% chance of success, those are the best odds humanity has had in 3 years." Admiral studied the younger man for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. "Prepare the interface." The procedure took place the next morning. Griffin was strapped into a chair at the center of the Harbinger's core chamber, surrounded by cables that connected his nervous system to the pulsing pillar of light. Monitored his vital signs from a control station, her hands trembling slightly. "Beginning neural synchronization," she said. "Sam, if you feel any pain, any disorientation, tell us immediately and we will abort." Griffin closed his eyes. "Just do it." The light flared. Griffin's body went rigid. His eyes flew open, but they were not looking at anything in the room. They were looking at something else, something far away and incomprehensibly vast. His mouth opened in a silent scream, and blood began to trickle from his nose. "Neural activity is off the charts," shouted. "Heart rate climbing, blood pressure critical, we need to abort." "No," Admiral said firmly. "Not yet, give him more time. He is dying." He knew the risk, we all know the risk, give him time. Wanted to argue, but she knew was right. This was their only chance. If they pulled Griffin out now, they might never have the courage to try again. Seconds stretched into minutes. Griffin's body shook violently, then suddenly went still. His vital signs plummeted, then stabilized at levels that should have been impossible. His eyes, which had been wild and unfocused, slowly cleared. He looked at, then at, and when he spoke, his voice was different. Older, heavier, like someone carrying the weight of 1,000,000 years. "I understand now," he said softly. "I understand everything." He had been in a coma for 6 weeks. When he finally woke up, he was not the same man who had gone into that chair. He could see things now, patterns in the universe that others could not perceive. He understood the principles behind the Harbinger's technology, not through study, but through direct knowledge planted in his mind by the ancient machine. The ship's builders, Griffin explained, had called themselves the architects. They had existed billions of years ago, during the earliest era of the galaxy. They had built the Harbinger as a test, a gift for species who had been pushed to the edge of extinction. Those who were desperate enough, clever enough, and brave enough to unlock its secrets would be given the power to reshape their fate. But it was a double-edged gift. The architects had watched many species claim the Harbinger's power. Some had used it to liberate themselves and build great civilizations. Others had used it to destroy everything, including themselves. The Harbinger did not care which path its masters chose. It simply provided the means. Griffin began working with to reverse engineer what he had learned. The first prototype, a frigate-class vessel called the Silent Fury, was completed 8 months later. It was smaller than a cruiser, crewed by only 47 people, but its weapons could crack a planet in half. "This is just the beginning," Griffin said as he watched the Silent Fury undergo its final tests. His eyes were distant, still touched by the ancient knowledge flowing through his neurons. "The Harbinger is waking up. It is teaching us, preparing us for what comes next." Stood beside him, her arms crossed. "And what comes next?" Griffin turned to look at her. For a moment, she saw something in his eyes that frightened her. Something old and patient and utterly without mercy. "Judgment," he said. "The thought they were teaching us a lesson about our place in the galaxy. They were wrong. The galaxy is about to learn its place with humanity." In the secret shipyards hidden throughout the solar system, 30 more vessels were under construction. The remnant was preparing for war, and this time they would not lose. Captain Laura had never believed in miracles. She was a practical woman born in a colony on Mars, raised on recycled air and strict discipline. She had joined the Navy at 18, served with distinction for 15 years, and survived the fall of Earth by pure chance. Her ship had been on a supply run when they attacked. By the time she returned, there was nothing left to return to. Now she sat in the captain's chair of the Silent Fury, humanity's first Harbinger-class warship, watching the stars blur as they crossed into territory. Her crew of 47 volunteers had all signed the same agreement. They understood they might not come back. Most of them preferred death to living under occupation. Lieutenant Danny Cole, her tactical officer, looked up from his console. "Captain, we are approaching the patrol sector. Long-range sensors detect 12 vessels on standard patrol routes." Nodded calmly. "Time to contact. 7 minutes at current speed." "Good, maintain course. Power up weapons but keep them in standby mode." The bridge fell silent. Everyone knew what was about to happen. For 3 years, humanity had been running, hiding, and dying. Today, that would change. Today, they would fight back, and the galaxy would never be the same. The Silent Fury was a beautiful ship in an ugly way. Her hull was black as space itself, covered in faint patterns that seemed to move when you looked at them from the corner of your eye. She was small compared to warships, barely 200 meters long, but her weapons were designed by beings who had been ancient when they were still learning to use fire. Thought about her family. Her parents had died in the initial bombardment. Her brother had been taken to a labor camp and had not survived the first winter. She had no one left except the crew around her and the burning anger in her heart. "Captain," Cole said, his voice tight, "the patrol has detected us. They are changing course to intercept. 12 ships, all cruiser class. They are hailing us." "Put them through." The main flickered and a face appeared. The species looked almost human, but their skin was pale blue, and their eyes had no pupils, just solid orbs of gold. The officer on screen radiated contempt. "Human vessel," they said, "you are in violation of Dominion space. Power down your engines and prepare to be boarded. If you comply, your deaths will be quick." Smiled. It was not a nice smile. "My name is Captain Laura of the Human Reclamation Navy. I have a message for the Dominion." The alien officer tilted his head slightly. "And what message is that?" We remember every death, every camp, every child you took from their parents. We remember it all, and we are coming for you." They laughed. It was a cold, cruel sound. "One small ship against 12 cruisers. You humans truly are as stupid as we believed. Very well, we will add your corpses to the collection." The connection cut off. Cole turned to, waiting for orders. "Target the lead vessel," said quietly. "Fire main weapon." The Silent Fury shuddered as energy poured through her systems. On the hull, patterns that had been dormant for millions of years began to glow with fierce light. The main cannon, a device that bent the very fabric of reality, discharged a beam of pure darkness. The lead cruiser did not explode. It simply ceased to exist. One moment it was there, a massive vessel bristling with weapons. The next moment there was nothing, no debris, no radiation, just empty space where a ship had been. For 3 seconds, nothing happened. Then chaos erupted across the formation. "Multiple targets changing course," Cole reported, his voice rising with excitement. "They are trying to scatter. Secondary weapon systems engaging." Watched as the Silent Fury's secondary batteries opened fire. Each shot found its target with impossible precision. Cruisers, ships that had destroyed hundreds of human vessels during the war, were torn apart like paper in a storm. Some tried to return fire, but their weapons splashed harmlessly against the Silent Fury's shields. The energy simply vanished, absorbed by technology that could not comprehend. The battle lasted 11 seconds, 12 cruisers, 12 kills. The Silent Fury did not receive a single scratch. Lieutenant Cole stared at his console, his hands shaking. "All targets eliminated, Captain. No survivors." Said nothing for a long moment. She had expected victory. Commander Griffin had assured them that they had no defense against Harbinger technology, but experiencing it firsthand was different. This was not a battle. This was an execution. "Record a message," she said finally. Transmitted on all frequencies, all languages. Cole nodded and activated the recording system. Straightened in her chair and looked directly at the camera. Her face was calm, but her eyes burned with something that had been building for 3 years. This message is for the Dominion and every species that watched while humanity burned. 3 years ago, you came to our world, you killed our people, you broke our fleet. You thought you had ended us. You were wrong. We found something in the wreckage you left behind, something ancient, something powerful, and now we are coming. She paused, letting the words sink in. For every human you killed, a will die. For every camp you built, a colony will fall. For every child you stole, a city will burn. This is not a threat. This is a promise. We were peaceful once. We wanted to join the galactic community. We offered friendship. You answered with death, so be it. You wanted war, now you have one. She leaned forward slightly. My name is Captain Laura. Today I killed 12 of your warships in 11 seconds. Tomorrow there will be 30 ships like mine. Next month 300. Next year 3,000. Run if you want. Hide if you can. It will not matter. We remember what you did. And we will never forget. Message ends. The recording stopped. Sat back in her chair, suddenly feeling very tired. Transmit it, she said. Then set course for home. We have a lot of work to do. As the silent fury turned back toward human space, the message began spreading through the galaxy at the speed of light. Within hours, it reached high command. Within days, it had been shared across 100 species and 1,000 worlds. The reaction was panic. For the first time in 10,000 years, the elder species of the galaxy looked at humanity not with contempt, but with fear. The vermin they had crushed had found something terrible in the darkness, and now that something was awake, bonded to a species that had nothing left to lose. The war for the galaxy had begun, and humanity was no longer the prey. Admiral Ben Torres had never wanted to be a leader of vengeance. Before the war, he had been a diplomat as much as a soldier, believing that humanity's future lay in cooperation with the elder species. He had spent years learning culture, studying their history, and building relationships with their ambassadors. He had genuinely believed that patience and understanding would earn humanity a place among the stars. Then the had destroyed everything he loved, and his beliefs died with them. Now he stood on the command deck of the newly constructed flagship, watching as 200 Harbinger-class warships formed up around him. The human reclamation navy had grown from a desperate dream into the most powerful military force the galaxy had ever seen. And today, they would use that power to take back what had been stolen. Torres was 62 years old. His hair had gone gray and his face was lined with grief and exhaustion. But his eyes were clear and his voice was steady as he addressed his fleet. For 3 years we have prepared for this moment. We have learned. We have built. We have become something the galaxy never expected. Today, we begin the liberation of Earth and every human world under occupation. Our mission is simple. Free our people, punish those responsible, and make sure no species ever thinks they can treat humanity this way again. Across 200 bridges, crews listened in silence. Many of them had lost families in the occupation. Many of them had escaped labor camps, carrying scars that would never heal. They did not cheer. They did not need to. Their determination was written in their faces. The fleet jumped to hyperspace, leaving the solar system behind. Dr. Kate was not on any of the warships. She remained on Europa, in the research facility that had become her home. The Harbinger itself was still there, dormant but dreaming, its neural network connected to Commander Griffin's mind across any distance. She had spent the last 3 years studying the ancient vessel, and what she had learned troubled her deeply. She found Griffin in the core chamber, standing before the pillar of light that served as the Harbinger's heart. He spent most of his time here now, communing with the ancient machine in ways that no one else could understand. He rarely slept. He rarely ate. The line between Sam Griffin and the Harbinger was becoming thinner every day. Sam said softly, "We need to talk." Griffin did not turn around. "I know why you are here, Kate. You found the records." Nodded even though he could not see her. "I found them. I know what this ship really is. I know what it does to the species who claim it." The Harbinger was not just a weapon. It was a test, as Griffin had told them. But it was more than that. It was a cycle repeating throughout galactic history for billions of years. The architects had seeded the galaxy with vessels like this one, leaving them to be found by desperate species on the edge of extinction. Those species always reacted the same way. They unlocked the power. They used it to destroy their enemies. And then, drunk on victory, they kept going. They expanded, conquered, and eventually turned the weapons on each other. Every species that had claimed a Harbinger had eventually destroyed itself, burned out in an orgy of violence and paranoia. They themselves were one of those species, said. 8,000 years ago, they found a vessel like this one. They used it to defeat an enemy we do not even have records of. And then they spent centuries wiping out every trace of that technology, swearing never to use it again. They were terrified of what they had become. Griffin finally turned to face her. His eyes were strange, carrying depths that had not been there before the neural interface. "You think we will follow the same path?" "I think we are already following it. Have you listened to the reports from the front lines? Our captains are not just winning battles, they are exterminating populations, burning colonies that have already surrendered. Last week, Captain destroyed an agricultural station. 30,000 civilians. She did not even send a warning. They killed millions of us. And now we are killing millions of them. Where does it end, Sam? When every is dead? When every species that stood by while we burned is gone? The Dominion has 500 member species. Are we going to destroy them all?" Griffin was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was tired. "The Harbinger shows me things sometimes, dreams of the species who came before. There was a race called the who used this very ship 12 million years ago. They had been slaves, treated worse than we ever were. When they found the Harbinger, they used it to free themselves. And then they kept going. They became conquerors, then tyrants, then monsters. In the end, there were only a few thousand of them left, floating in the ruins of a galaxy they had destroyed." And the architects asked, "What happened to them?" "They were the first. They built the Harbingers to save themselves from an enemy so terrible that even the memory of it has been erased. They won, but they could not stop. They kept building, kept fighting until there was nothing left to fight. In the end, they scattered these ships across the galaxy and disappeared. No one knows where. Maybe they destroyed themselves. Maybe they evolved beyond physical form. Maybe they just got tired of existing." Stepped closer. "Sam, you are more connected to this ship than any human alive. You have seen what happens to species who take this path. You have to convince Admiral Torres to show mercy. We can win this war without becoming the monsters we are fighting." Griffin looked at her for a long moment. Then he walked past her toward the exit. "I will try," he said, "but I am not sure I believe in mercy anymore, and I am not sure the Harbinger will let me." As he left, turned back to the pillar of light. It pulsed steadily, patient and eternal. She could almost feel it watching her, judging her, waiting to see what humanity would become. In space, the war continued. Human ships tore through enemy defenses like fire through dry wood. Colonies fell. Fleets were destroyed. The 5 species of the Dominion began to turn on each other, blaming one another for provoking the human response. On Earth, liberation had come with blood and tears. Occupation forces had been slaughtered without mercy. Collaborators had been dragged from their homes and executed in the streets. Humanity was free, but the scars ran deep, and the hunger for revenge was not satisfied. Admiral Torres received reports every day of atrocities committed by both sides. He told himself that they deserved what they got. He told himself that this was justice, not murder. He told himself that when the war was over, humanity would find peace. But late at night, alone in his quarters, he wondered if he was lying to himself. He wondered if the species that emerged from this war would be one worth saving. And in the core of the Harbinger, the ancient light pulsed with something that might have been anticipation. The final test was coming. The sky above Prime burned with the light of dying ships. 2,000 warships, the largest fleet ever assembled in the history of the Dominion, faced the human armada in a desperate last stand. This was their capital world, home to 12 billion, the heart of an empire that had ruled the stars for. If it fell, their civilization would end. Admiral Ben Tor stood on the bridge of the Harbinger itself, watching the battle unfold across a dozen holographic displays. The ancient vessel had finally awakened fully, bonded to Commander Griffin's consciousness and responding to human commands. It moved through space like nothing else in existence, a dark shadow that the enemy weapons could not touch. Enemy fleet is holding formation around the orbital defense stations, Lieutenant Commander Griffin reported from his neural interface station. His voice was calm, but his hands trembled slightly. The Harbinger was showing him things, terrible things, visions of what would happen if they chose the wrong path today. They know they cannot win. They are buying time for evacuation transports to leave the planet. Tors nodded slowly. How many civilians are still on the surface? Approximately 8 billion. The evacuation has only moved a fraction of the population. 8 billion, the same number that had lived on Earth before the invasion. Tors closed his eyes for a moment, remembering. He remembered the day the fleet appeared in orbit, so confident in their superiority that they had not even bothered to demand surrender. He remembered the bombardment that followed, the cities burning, the screams that echoed across every communication channel. He remembered his daughter, calling him in those final moments before the line went dead. "Admiral," Captain Laura's voice came through the communication system from her ship. "The fleet is in position. We can punch through their lines in 15 minutes. Another hour after that and we can neutralize their ground defenses. By tomorrow morning, there will be no organized resistance left." And then Tors asked, hesitated, "And then we do what we came to do, justice for the dead, a lesson that will echo through history." Tors looked at the blue-green world spinning slowly on his display. Prime was beautiful, covered in vast oceans and forest continents. 12 billion people lived there, most of them civilians who had never fired a weapon, never voted for war, never done anything except be born on the wrong planet. "The orbital bombardment would kill how many?" he asked quietly. "If we use the Harbinger's primary weapon at full power, the surface will be sterilized within 6 hours. No survivors. The planet would remain uninhabitable for approximately 10,000 years." Tors thought about the labor camps on Earth, the mass graves, the children taken from their parents. He thought about the officer who had ordered his daughter's city destroyed, who had laughed while millions died. That officer was probably down there on Prime right now, hiding behind 8 billion innocent shields. "Commander Griffin," Tors said, "what is the Harbinger telling you?" Griffin was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was strange, layered with something ancient and vast. "It is showing me the endings. I see burning a galaxy to ash and wondering why victory felt so empty. I see the architects, so tired of war that they chose to disappear rather than exist another day. I see 100 species who took this power and used it without limit, and every single one of them is gone now. Forgotten, erased from history because there was no one left to remember them. And what does it want us to do? It does not want anything. It is a mirror, Admiral. It shows us what we might become. The choice is ours. It has always been ours." Tors turned to look at the command crew around him. These were the survivors, the ones who had lost everything and kept fighting. He saw pain in their eyes and anger and a hunger for revenge that matched his own. They had earned the right to destroy their enemies. No one in the galaxy would blame them. But he also saw something else. He saw exhaustion. He saw doubt. He saw people who had spent so long fighting that they had forgotten what they were fighting for. "Open a channel to the fleet," Torres said. "All frequencies." The communications officer hesitated for just a moment, then, "Channel open, Admiral." Torres straightened his uniform and faced the primary camera. "This is Admiral Ben Torres of the Human Reclamation Navy. I am speaking to the Dominion and to every species watching this transmission across the galaxy. 3 years ago, you tried to destroy us. You burned our world. You killed our people. You thought we were weak. You thought we were finished. You were wrong." He paused, letting the words echo across light years of space. "We found something in the wreckage of our defeat, something ancient, something powerful. Today, we stand above your capital world with the power to do to you what you did to us. One command and 12 billion of your people die. One word and Prime becomes a grave." He could see the fleet adjusting formation, desperate, knowing they could not stop what was coming. "But we are not you," Torres continued. "We remember what you did. We will never forget. But we also remember who we were before the war. We were explorers, dreamers, builders. We reached for the stars because we believed the universe held wonders worth discovering. You tried to burn that out of us. You failed." He took a deep breath. "This is my order to the human fleet. Target military installations only. Precision strikes on orbital defense platforms and naval facilities. Civilian areas are to remain untouched. Any captain who fires on a civilian target will be court-martialed and stripped of command. We are not here to exterminate. We are here to end this war." The bridge was silent. Torres could feel the weight of every eye upon him. "To the people of Prime," he said, his voice softer now, "we could kill you all. You know this, we know this. But we choose not to, not because we have forgiven you. We have not because we have forgotten. We never will. We choose mercy because that is who we want to be. Not conquerors, not monsters. Human." He let the silence stretch for a moment. "This war ends today. Your military will stand down. Your occupation forces will surrender. Your leaders will face trial for their crimes. And you will remember this moment for the rest of your history. The day humanity could have destroyed you and chose not to. Remember it well. And pray that we never have to make this choice again." He cut the transmission and turned to his crew. "Begin the attack. Military targets only." The Harbinger moved forward and the ancient weapons spoke in fire and light. Warships died in silence, erased from existence by power they could not understand. Orbital platforms crumbled. Defense stations fell dark. Within 2 hours, the battle was over. But the planet below remained intact. 12 billion looked up at the sky in terror and disbelief, waiting for death that never came. In the core of the Harbinger, the ancient light pulsed with something new. After billions of years and countless species, after watching civilization after civilization destroy themselves with the power it offered, the machine had finally found something different. A species that had taken the weapon and chosen not to use it. A species that had faced absolute power and found the strength to hold back. Commander Griffin stood before the pillar of light, tears streaming down his face. The Harbinger was singing to him, showing him futures that had never existed before. Humanity would rebuild. Humanity would grow. And someday, far in the future, they might become something worthy of the stars. "What happens now?" he whispered. The Harbinger did not answer in words. But deep within its ancient heart, something that had been sleeping for eons finally felt at peace. The test was over. Humanity had passed.